Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to a brand new series of the We Are Careers show, your regular bite-sized morsel of CPD for the career development sector. And as always, we're bringing you all the latest news and views on a variety of topics affecting us all as careers professionals and anybody else who wants to be involved or listen to the show. So a very warm welcome. For those who've kind of not met me before, my name is Chris Webb. I'm a higher education careers professional and RCDP with the Career Development Institute. And I'm joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Sabiha. So Sabiha, are you having a good start to 2023 and a good start to this week, or middle of week?
Oh, hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. For those of you who are watching for the first time, welcome, welcome, welcome. And for our regular viewers, hello, it's good to have you back. Are you happy that we're back on live screen? By the way, let us know, as Chris said, you know what, it's been a little bit of a bumpy start for 2023. I can't believe that we're already at the end of January already, and we're already sort of kind of planning for spring and summer already. So all good things. How about you guys that are watching currently live right now, whether you're watching on one of the streams on LinkedIn, Facebook, the Facebook community, or perhaps maybe on YouTube, wherever you're watching us, whether you're watching us live or you're watching us on the playback, let us know. Use the comments chat box feature, the chat box below, to let us know what kind of exciting things have you got coming up. What are you going to be developing? What career strategies, projects? We're really keen to hear. And as Chris mentioned, today we're going to be talking about what career-related issues are most affecting Gen Z. If you've got any questions, because we've got two really fabulous guests with us today that are going to kickstart off our 2023 series. And so watch this space. But I know before we get into who we've got with us today, we want to celebrate our hashtag careers cheers, right, Chris? So what are we celebrating this week?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of been a bumper start to 2023. Lots and lots going on in the careers world already, which is really nice. And our first kind of careers cheers is a bit of a revisit of what we kind of ended on, I guess, or ended the year on at the end of our last series, which is just a bit of a plug or another plug for the Careers Impact hashtag. So just as a reminder, this is a hashtag that's been created by the Career Development Institute, really to kind of get people sharing those inspirational stories of how you've supported clients or groups or organizations as part of your work. So we're looking at the Careers Impact hashtag. There's been lots of really good examples of it on LinkedIn, particularly, which you can check out. And just a reminder to kind of keep sharing those stories of Careers Impact moving forward. And speaking of Careers Impact, this is our kind of Careers Cheers number 2. Now, this is a bit of a personal one from me, so it's a bit of a cheat. But people like me who are perhaps a bit too obsessed with education select committees have been watching the most recent kind of videos. So on the 10th of January and yesterday, we had 2 new education select committee hearings into careers education, information, advice and guidance, which I'll talk about a bit later on in the news section. And within those, there were some really great contributions from generally everyone that was there as part of the panel. But I want to give a particular shout out to Anthony Barnes, careers education consultant, who's involved with the Quality and Career Standard, and Joe Sykes, director of CEIAG at Co-op Academies Trust. Their input was really useful in terms of actually kind of drawing back to careers professionals and I guess sort of addressing some of the challenges, but also talking about things, for example, like the benefit of qualified careers practitioners, and talking about maybe some of the challenges that have come up around work experience, and also stuff around the CDI career development framework. So some of the issues I think that have been missing from kind of evidence in previous select committees. So big careers cheers to both of them. And our final careers cheers, again, is a bit of a shameless plug for all things CDI. And it's just a reminder this week that we've got the EDI big conversation workshops taking place, looking at open, inclusive discussions on different aspects of diversity in the sector, and a big kind of careers cheers to all of the speakers and attendees who are going to be involved with those conversations on Thursday and Friday this week. So that is our kind of brief roundup of careers cheers, and back to you, Sabiha.
Oh, thank you. Oh my God, wow. I feel exhausted you reading all of that stuff. I think I'm going to be ready for lunch and a nap after that, after today's show. But before I get to that, we're going to be talking about what career-related issues are most affecting Gen Z. So if you're working in that space right now, or perhaps maybe you've got family members who work in that space, join in the conversation. Let us know, what do you think are the most sort of pressing issues that are affecting Gen Z when it comes to their careers? Now, this is a question that we're going to be tackling with today's guest, Dan Sullivan, founder of Gen Z Talks, and Ife Obasa, the Powerless Future Leader 2022/2023 and Black Lawyers Matters Ambassador. So Ife, I want to come to you. Ife, I want to come to you first. For those people who don't know you, haven't maybe perhaps come across the work that you do, share with our viewers a little about who you are and the work that you do.
Yeah, sure. So hello everyone. My name is Ife Obasa. Lovely to be here and to be on this platform. A little bit about myself. I'm currently on a placement year, legal placement year. I've completed 2 years of my undergraduate law degree and will be returning to finish my final year this October. And I'm really passionate about education, young people, and law. So you'll probably find me on LinkedIn drafting posts on my 3 different passions. But I think it was really in the last year or so I decided that I wanted to do a bit more in this space. I'd founded a social enterprise in the past, but I had to close that due to law school. So I thought, what could I do to sort of share my opinions on young people? And I've been involved with a lot of organizations that are looking to invest in schools and mentoring young people. And so that's what I've been doing for, I'd say, about the past year.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you for that. And if anyone's resonating with that already as well, I'm just going to bring in some of the chat before I bring Dan in. Great to see you in 2023 and lovely to see Dan and Ifa. Warm welcome from Foggy Mulvern area. That's Liz. Yes, I can't believe Lisa LaRue is just saying, yes, can't believe January's almost over. I'm remote working from southern Sweden. Hello, Lisa. Great to have you joining us today right now and great to be here live. Fabulous. Hashtag and focus on Anthony and Joe. I've already got questions coming in. So before I even get to that question, Dan, okay, let's get you introduced and let's get you joining into the show. Jan, for those people who don't know you and the work that you do, share with us what it is that you're most passionate about when it comes to the career space.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. Yeah, so my background was actually in law originally. So I worked 10 years in the legal sector. And whilst I was doing that, I was actually on various committees to help young people develop. So I always had the passion for the career development of young people, even when I was in law. Then I left law to do teaching in Vietnam, a couple of other places. And then I left teaching to join Education Development Trust, where I'm part of the West London Careers Hub. And I work with a number of schools in supporting them to make sure young people get the experience, guidance, and sort of support to make, the key decisions that they need to for looking at their futures and what jobs they want to go into and making sure that they have the right skills, connections and encounters. And in 2020, sorry, going back, I went a bit too fast, I actually launched a platform, a career development and networking platform called Gen Z Talks, which I'm still working on today. And that evolved around the youth voice and actually bringing together young people and experienced professionals to listen to what young people are thinking, their experiences, and to create a two-way learning where young people are connecting and building key connections and skills by the events and programs that we organize. And employers and experienced professionals were learning about young people, how to support them, and actually learning quite a few new skills which young people pick up more naturally, focus around social media, marketing, content creation, and the entrepreneurial mindset that they have, which employers are really keen to get into the workplace. So yeah, I'm still working on that, and I'm doing a lot with schools with the West London Careers Hub.
That's fantastic. Well, great introductions both, and also Dan, a very nice segue then into really the kind of the meat of the conversation, I guess, today. And Sabiha's mentioned we've already had kind of comments come through sort of from the audiences. First one has mentioned about struggling to engage Gen Z, linking very much to some of the stuff that you said there, Dan, around kind of reorienting that employer relations approach and linking into perhaps what it is that kind of young people from that demographic are actually from that generation are saying. So this kind of seems to be a really sort of good point for us to start on. And I guess part of that is around, we always try to avoid this sort of generational generalization, I guess. There are a lot of articles out there talking about millennials do this or Gen Z do this, and you're always wary to avoid those kind of stereotypes. But I guess a good place to start would be, what are some of those unique characteristics for career development, I guess, that are facing Gen Z specifically? So Efe, if we can come to you first, what do you think there is, I suppose, within Gen Z particularly, that are maybe kind of distinct characteristics when it comes to kind of the career journeys and career development?
I'd definitely say I think the most unique aspect of Gen Z is that we were born into technology. So we were born into this sort of world where social media was around, and that's why I guess they call us the social media generation. And I definitely say two characteristics that are very unique to Gen Z are they're actually, contrary to popular belief, very resilient as a generation. I know a lot of people, myself included, that are able to just pick themselves up again, even when they've had faced rejection, or are able to maneuver situations, even though it may be unfavorable. And I definitely say the second characteristics is they're forward thinking. I mean, there's so many young people now who have social enterprises or businesses and companies because they've seen maybe a gap in the market and they want to fill that gap. And so they've taken it upon themselves to start something. So I definitely say the two characteristics that are unique to Gen Z are they're very resilient and they're forward thinking as well, which pairs very well with innovation.
And you mentioned there about sort of the kind of the social media generation aspect of that. And obviously from a careers professional perspective, we're seeing a lot more written, particularly about young people in that generation using things like TikTok, YouTube in order to kind of access careers advice. And naturally, I think that's, causing some concern about, where people get their advice from, what that looks like, how some of that's quality assured. But I suppose links to your point about being kind of quite forward facing, do you think there are sort of both opportunities and challenges there when it comes to that wealth of information? And I guess someone sort of reflected that. I think Lisa's reflected that actually in the chat, talking about that information overwhelm as well.
Yeah, it's one of those really, I'd say, rocky terrains in that as much as TikTok and a lot of these social media platforms are very helpful for a lot of young people getting careers advice, for instance, there are sometimes individuals who don't really put out useful information. So I think it's just that they have seen that people are hungry for information and they sort of, I don't want to say put their thoughts and impose it on others, but they don't also put out quality content. So it's one of those rocky terrains, but I definitely say on the whole, there are a lot of young people who are looking for information, who are hungry to learn and are ready to put themselves out there. And it just happens to be that TikTok and Instagram are those places where people are able to produce short form content. You can save that to your phone gallery and then you can access that whenever you like.
Oh, I've just, I think that's me. I've just lost connection there. We're back anyway. Sorry, that may have just been my side. Thanks, Sabiha. That's really, really useful reflection. And Dan, if I can sort of bring you in here, I know that kind of connects a little bit to some of the stuff that you've talked about before, I suppose, in terms of access. So as Ife was saying there, the advantage, I guess, of social media and I guess of those media formats is you've got that kind of immediate or on-demand access. But I know you've talked before about a different type of access. So that access to employer opportunities, networking. And how is that different, I guess, for Gen Z than perhaps it might have been for previous generations?
Well, I think a lot of Gen Z are now jumping onto the LinkedIn platform and connecting with employers much more than young people my age. I know that platform's become really popular, especially during lockdown, where a lot of young people started communities, started their own businesses, and we're able to connect with people from their rooms on platforms like LinkedIn. And they're actually changing the tone. So they're making LinkedIn a bit more of a fun, engaging platform. And you're getting a lot of young, inspiring content leaders. And young people tend to be inspired by other young people where they can relate to them more, where it's more realistic. And you're getting people from diverse backgrounds who are inspiring others from diverse backgrounds and giving young people self-belief. So I think that's acted as a real great platform and removed barriers that were once there before, maybe, or more difficult to connect with people. But I think now as well, it's very important that young people, business networking groups change the kind of environment and make that more accessible for young people. And to actually encourage more young people than ever before to go and join the networking groups and be part of that community. because working from home and the virtual world that we live in, there's going to be some enormous challenges of young people and their career development, because they're not able, like I did when I was younger, to have on a Monday to Friday leaders around them, listening to what they're doing, being able to speak to them at any moment, knowing when they're off the phone. So I think that was, for me, a really good networking opportunity as well, because you meet some really and build up some really close relationships at the companies you're at, from seeing them face to face in person every day. So that's got to be carefully managed.
I know, if you've kind of reflected on this sort of previously when we've talked about your own experience in terms of the, I guess, relationship building, communication, that sort of professional communication side. How has that kind of been for you, I guess, particularly over sort of the last few years with COVID? And do you feel that's maybe been a slightly different challenge for Gen Z than, as Dan mentioned, perhaps previous generations have had to deal with?
Yeah, I'd definitely say so. I mean, I finished A-levels during COVID, and then we were thrust into this remote working and everything being online. And I think, to be honest, because we go through, and this is something I'm hoping that we'll be able to discuss more and more, that because the education system doesn't have in place a system anymore for young people encountering employers before the age of 18, you kind of go through this process where you haven't really got any positive experiences, or you haven't really got any experience of being in a workplace. So I think for me, starting my placement year now was very new and different for me, because I was having to interact in a workplace and with colleagues, and that was a very new experience for me. But I think for me, it wasn't as hard because I've had internships and prior experience in the past. So I think one of the challenges that at least I'm noticing with other young people like myself is that they don't really know how to adapt to the remote working, or at least building professional relationships. So I think moving forward, if employers are able to realize that you have got a young workforce that will start coming into play a lot sooner than we think, having things in place like trainings or workshops in place to ease them into the workplace. And of course, if we can, have businesses, companies going into schools earlier, so that young children are able to encounter employers at least before the age of 18.
Oh, thank you for that, Ifa. And it's so interesting. And I think I've got a little bit of a lag. I just want to bring in some of the comments that we've had coming through, as both of you have been sharing your experiences and your knowledge and your sort of kind of insights on this subject. And I've just had someone, Alia Ibrahim, who said, you nailed it. So clearly, with the content that you're sharing today is really resonating with our audiences today. So Dan and Ifa, so thank you so much for that. I've also got somebody that's come in, Facebook user, that has said, hang on, let's go back. Let's see. Do you think companies maybe need educating in how to create that more authentic, inspirational content that would appeal to Gen Z? Thumbs up or thumbs down if you think that you think companies need to do more of that. Ifa and Dan, what do you think? Do you think the companies could do more in educating of creating that? Yep, definitely. See, we're getting thumbs up there. Another Facebook user has just come in and said, sorry, without networks, I know that mental health issues, and we haven't even touched upon that, so, that may be more likely. So it's not just about, sort of kind of career progression and how to sort of kind of climb that corporate ladder per se. It's also about how do you feel, and that I know is something that sits very clearly in the minds of Gen Z with the work that I have done. And then we've got another comment that's come in that said, the good news, Ifa, is that the more work is being done in schools and colleges with employers, starting with primary schools. So watch this space. So I think your voice of what you're sharing about what more needs to be done is definitely sort of kind of resonating with the professionals. And perhaps you're watching this on the replay and you want to add, so make sure that you've hit that subscribe button, number one. One of the things that we're trying to do with this content is we want to reach as many sort of interested parties, career professionals, working whatever space that you do. And by hitting that subscribe button on YouTube or on LinkedIn, it really helps us to make sure that you get that notification. And if you are enjoying the content, whether that's today's show or maybe you've gone back and looked at our sort of kind of backlog of shows that we've done, make sure you hit the like button as well, so that we can make sure that we're creating content that is relevant for you. And so as we wrap up today's show, for our viewers watching who are keen to get better understanding of how they can support the career development of Gen Z clients, what would your recommendations be? And Dan, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, recommendations. Can you just repeat that question again, Sabiha?
Yeah, of course I can. So it's all about wrapping it up and thinking about what would you suggest for those viewers that are watching right now, how they can sort of better support the development of Gen Z clients. Are there any tips, any tools, any additional resources that you'd recommend that career professionals can access and others who are supporting Gen Z with their career development?
Yeah, I think my recommendation would be to make youth voice the center of activities, career activities, programs. And what I mean by that is young people are struggling with confidence and mental health, and sometimes self-belief about what skills they have. So why don't you turn it around and create a reverse mentoring kind of program where the young people's leading. You can understand young people more because they can lead the conversation, they can give you their perspectives, and at the same time they can learn back. So for me, creating that two-way value, that reverse mentoring, even in careers events, making the youth voice, a key part of that event to inspire young people to communicate, not just young people, but for the employers to actually understand what young people are thinking and what they're passionate, what they're motivated by. So actually giving young people a space to express their motivations, I think is really important, and reverse mentoring will go a long way in helping employers understanding and also being able to give back as well at the same time, so they can build those key skills that young people are missing.
Well, it's so interesting that you say that, because already people are sort of kind of Dan are jumping on that. I've got somebody here, a Facebook user, that's saying love that idea. So that's obviously really resonating. Then we've got one of our regulars. Hello, Leanne. Great to have you here again with us. She's talking about there's a great report co-written with a 19-year-old on careers, which again aligns with Dan what you are saying, and it's called An Agenda for Change, written by Lauren Roberts Turner. An Agenda for Change.
Yeah, that's from the Facework organisation. Just for anyone who's watching that at home, some people may have read that already, but yeah, Facework is the organisation you want to check out. As Leanne's mentioned, really good report.
And it's so fascinating, Dan, when you said that, because I remember working on a project. This was a few years back, so it was pre-COVID, and I remember I was working with a university, and they were talking about putting on a student event, and at no point was anybody around the committee meeting talking about involving the students. And I remember I had to kind of put my hand up and go, okay, we're organising an event for students, but there is no student stakeholder sitting around this table. Now I had to go, why? And then everybody just kind of looked at me, and I was like, yeah, shouldn't there be, if we're organising something for the students, shouldn't there be a student voice here? And they were like, oh yeah, we should do. So then the next meeting, we had students coming in and joining the meeting. So you're so right, Dan. And that's just a simple way, low cost effective way, but at the same time as well engages the audience that you want to engage with. If I want to come to you and give you an opportunity to share with our viewers today your tips, your techniques, your recommendations of what we can do. Dan's mentioned a very sort of kind of, in my opinion, a very low cost way of engaging with Gen Z about what it is that they want and the kind of support they want, rather than sort of kind of people who are perhaps, I'm a little bit older than Gen Z now. And so, my experience is not going to resonate. I grew up in a time where we didn't have TikTok. So what would you say? What are your recommendations and tips?
I think two recommendations that I have. The first is I've been involved in a lot of focus groups. So I've had a company called 106 Communications, a great company, a marketing agency. There are a lot of companies that go to them and say, we want to change the way we are approaching our young workforce. How can we do this? And 106 Comms comes to me and says, we want to host a focus group. Would you like to be a part of it? We want to get your thoughts and feedback to the company. So I think a really effective way that companies can really engage with Gen Z or educate themselves is to host focus groups. That's also a very low cost way to go about that. Focus groups are fantastic in that you're getting actual opinions from your target audience. And it's also a way for them to learn and for us as well to explain and share our perspectives. And I'd say a second thing, or a second way that companies can get to know young people, Gen Z, would be to engage with companies that are, let's say, the middlemen. So I recently came into contact with one of the co-founders of Eric, and they're doing a great job trying to help companies that want to get to know Gen Z better. So I think that's another way that, go into companies that really their niche is Gen Z and understanding Gen Z, partnering with them and getting a few lessons on how you can target that audience better. I think those would be my recommendations.
Fantastic, thanks, Ife, and really kind of nice broad set recommendations from both of you there, which I think are really helpful. And from looking at the kind of comments, I think there's a lot of broad agreement there. Just going to bring in a couple of these before we sort of wrap up. Anna Marie Murray, thank you. Interesting, to hear other kind of people in the comment thread giving recommendations too. So that idea of kind of reducing barriers, we heard this in the Education Select Committee this week. How do we make work experience easier? How do we make the bureaucracy less? How do we reduce the logistics, particularly maybe in areas of the country where there are fewer opportunities? So it's really interesting to hear that kind of reflected here. Leanne Hambley, absolutely agreeing with both of you around kind of co-design. And Sabiha, your point there as well around kind of building in sort of students, young people as partners rather than it being sort of an afterthought. So yeah, really interesting to hear that reflected too. And some great other comments in there around sort of LinkedIn. We've got stuff around greater access to vocational careers, and again, I know that's quite a hot topic in career sector at the moment, and things like increasing apprenticeship wage. So again, we've got stuff in there around cost of living and how that disproportionately impacts young people, perhaps over other generations. So yeah, some great stuff in there. I wish we could kind of get through to it all, but unfortunately, as always, we are running dangerously low on time. If I come to you first, if people have been watching this and are interested in kind of following your work, finding out more about you, where's the best place to kind of connect with you and find out what's going on?
Best place to connect with me is LinkedIn. My name is Ife Obasa, and yeah, you'll probably find me there with my GP picture. That's the best way to connect with me.
That's great, fantastic. So yeah, anybody watching this, please do kind of check out Ife. I think I actually, in order to sort of get this show kind of running today, I actually initially followed you, didn't I, Ife, on LinkedIn, and then I got in touch with Dan, and Dan said, I know somebody who's perfect for this, and we'd already been in touch with you. So yeah, always good to kind of follow what these guys are up to and see the work they're involved in. And Dan, same question to you as well. Again, if people want to find out about Gen Z Talks or everything that you've been doing, where's the best place to kind of connect with you?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Dan Sullivan. Gen Z Talks also has a YouTube channel where I've interviewed, and a couple of people have interviewed young people from around the world on different work and education topics, which your students or career professionals might find useful. And you can have a look at genztalks.co website, where you can see some of the work, our ambassadors, and what we'll be doing going forward.
Fantastic. Thanks very much to you both. And again, anyone who's been watching today, please do, check out Ife and Dan's work and connect with them if you've been interested in the conversation today and want to take it further. And that brings us really nicely towards the end of the show. We've got one kind of final bit, as always, which we're hopeful our guests will kind of stay briefly to join us for, which is our CDI and Careers News of the Week. So I'm going to pass straight over to yourself, Sabiha, and find out what's been happening this week in the kind of CDI side of things.
Oh, thank you for that. And I just want to say a quick thank you. Thank you, Ife and Dan, for joining us today. I know Chris has already sort of kind of thanked you, and I know already, the comments are still coming through. I'm literally looking on screen and kind of going, oh no, I want to talk about that. So here's the thing, okay, continue this conversation. Don't think that just because the show is over, the conversation has to stop. Remember, you connect with these guys, you connect with Chris and I. We are both proactive on LinkedIn as well. That's our preferred chosen platform as well. I know Chris loves a good Twitter run as well, so if those are the platforms, so connect with us, continue these conversations, because I firmly believe that collectively we can create such positive ripple impact for the clients that we serve. I know today's focus has been around Gen Z, but perhaps you're working in a different space. Again, that information and collaboration is the key, and your network is your net worth, as one of my mentors many, many years ago told me. So the CDI news, what have I got for us today? So there's 3 stories that I've picked out thanks to some of my colleagues, so thank you. What difference does research make? With particular focus on how research helps to measure impact, contribute to policy decisions, and inform practice. Chris, is probably one up your street, and for perhaps other viewers as well. Now, this one comes courtesy of Claire Johnson, the National Research Conference for Career practitioners is taking place on Thursday, the 16th of February in 2023. And it's an all-day event from 9:15 a.m. till 4:45. Information you can find on the CDI website. So go ahead and take a look. But just to sort of kind of give you a little bit of a taster, it's basically an overview. The National Research Conference for Career Practitioners is an annual event brought to you in partnership with the CDI, ISEGS, AGCAS, and NICEG. And the idea this year is to sort of kind of see research as something undertaken not just by academics. If you're perhaps working in a space but you're not an academic, then this is the sort of kind of right conference for you, because it's about inspiring you and your career development and what that can look like by undertaking research and developing the evidence base to contribute to the profession. So then story number 2 that I have for us is, are you making it easy for people and organizations to find you? Now, this news story came courtesy of Lynn Burgess. The CDI recently performed their annual professional register information check. So that is if, and part of this check is to look at all the names we've listed as members, as well as those who've completed their registered professional profile on the CDI website. So that's if you are an RCDP, like Chris and I are, or you are an RCL directories. And so they want to make sure that people can find you easily on the website. So if you haven't already done a check, go along and take a look at your profile. Just make sure that all the fields are completed fully. And for any reason, when you go in them and you test and you're trying to look for yourself and you can't find yourself, and all the complete fields have been completed, because that could be an issue there why people can't find you, send an email to Lynn Burgess at CDI and she will help you get that fixed. And then finally today, are you or someone you know doing exceptional work in the career space? If you are, or if you know someone else who is, you've got just 1 month to enter your awards nomination. Nominations for the UK Careers Development Awards will close in just 1 month's time on Wednesday, the 15th of February at 5 p.m. Please visit the website to download the entry form and notes for how you apply. And the ceremony will be taking place in person on the 26th of June 2023. And the awards will be presented at the UK CDI ceremony, where it will, the evening before the National Careers Leaders Conference, which is also taking place in Derby at the university campus. So that's it for me today. That's everything that I've got from the CDI. Chris, what have you got for us from the wider career space?
Thanks, Sabiha. Yeah, it's so much going on, as you say, both kind of from the CDI perspective and more sort of generally in the career sphere. So lots to share, and just 3 kind of short news stories I just want to draw sort of people's attention to this week before we finish the show. The first I kind of alluded to earlier. So as we mentioned, there are now 2 hearings or new hearings from the Education Select Committee into CEIAG in England. One was on the 10th of January and one took place yesterday. There's quite a lot of broad themes in there. The one yesterday was more around kind of work experience and sort of employer role models. The one on the 10th was a little bit broader, also encompassed the new kind of newly funded primary careers programme. But there's lots and lots of stuff within there. So if you do get a chance to watch them, they're both available to watch back on Parliament TV. So do check those out if you haven't already. The second one is a nice article that's sort of come through from FE News, and anyone who follows kind of my weekly newsletter will know that we're doing a lot of chat at the moment in the career sector around ChatGPT, the AI software tool that's really, I suppose, kind of everywhere at the moment and has been used for all sorts of different things, from kind of generating cover letters and CVs to producing marketing plans, all sorts of things. It is, I think, fair to say something that no careers professional is going to be able to avoid in terms of talking about it, and really useful to consider how it might impact the work that we do moving forward. In fact, it was actually mentioned yesterday by Robert Peston in the Education Select Committee hearing. So we know that it's going to be something that careers professionals have to start thinking about. So if you haven't come across it yet, that article is a really nice place to start. And then finally, a nice little kind of more humorous news story to end with, a little bit more lighthearted. There's a nice article on BBC Work Life around the problem with inventing flashy new job titles. So this is looking at, for example, things like hype and culture specialist. So job titles invented purely for a specific individual at a specific company, and some of the kind of benefits and challenges that come with that. So, about kind of perhaps giving staff more autonomy, but equally, how does that impact if you're then going for different jobs in the future? Really nice thing to consider, particularly if you're starting to see slightly different job titles pop up when working with clients, or just kind of generally in your own research. So 3 stories from me for this week. And that sort of not only ends the news section, but also ends our show for today. And all that really remains left to be said is join us again in 2 weeks' time. We are back on Wednesday, the 8th of February at the usual time of 12 o'clock, where we have the great David Andrews and Tristram Hooley joining us to talk about the latest version of the Careers Leader Handbook. So we really hope you can join us then. But in the meantime, hope you have a fantastic couple of weeks. Thanks so much for joining us for the show today. And yeah, we'll see you in a fortnight. Take care.